All right, YouTube, this is Mr. Mean coming at you this fine, what is today? Friday evening. I hope everyone is doing well. I have some thoughts and I want to share them with you. I was chatting with my good friend Brian last week, and he threw up a really good idea for a video. We were talking about how expensive RPGs have become in the last year, to be honest. And you know, one of the things that we fall into as hobbyists is we feel FOMO, fear of missing out. We feel that we have to buy the next great thing. You know, we have to stay on top of the industry. And a lot of people don't feel this way. It's more people with collections like this that feel that way. And I wanted to point out and just talk about you don't have to have FOMO. You don't have to buy every RPG that you run across or you see or you think. You can get mileage. You know, what game system have you played that you've gotten the most mileage out of? Chances are either there is a tertiary market or a secondary market from the publisher itself where they support other settings, other genres that you can use in that, you know, game system that you have. And part of that is maybe if you feel like there's not, then one of the options is to look at some settings, some systems that are more generic or universal. And so one of the things I want to do is throw out 4 possibilities. These are just 4 that I scanned my shelf and I grabbed real quick. They're in no particular order, no particular preference. I like them all for what they can and can't do. Yeah, because sometimes something that can't do something leads you to something else. And you know, it's kind of a positive. You're taking a negative and turning it into a positive. So again, no particular order. Rising cost of books. The hobby being, you know, a lot of times, a lot of these core books now are Paizo's charging $80 a book now. Now, if you buy direct from Paizo and you don't go the Amazon route, you know, trying to get a discount on you know, your book, you're going to get the PDF if you buy it directly from Paizo. But I believe you have to be part of their subscription program in order to get that PDF. If not, you have to physically buy the PDF on your own. So it's kind of a catch-22. I recently got solicited for because I'm on the GM program, and so the new NPC book just came out, and so they sent me a thing saying, hey, on X date, we're going to ship the NPC book. I don't need a book of NPCs. I have no problem coming up with NPCs on my own, and in my games, in the way I run my games, NPCs don't have a huge, you know, part in the game where I need statistics for them or stats. I can just make it up on the fly. Right now, they're part of the Pathfinder Society in Solthis, which is in Osirian and Galarian in the Pathfinder 2nd edition revised, and their main contact with the guild, with the Pathfinder Society, is Amenanophis. And I just have some general notes written down about Amenanophis, and that's all I need. I make it up as I go. And if something, you know, pings or whatever when we're doing, I make a quick note. But that being said, not everybody is that flexible. Some people want the NPC book. I just felt that for $80, it didn't have that much value for me. And if I see it later, or someone says, oh my gosh, you got to get the NPC book, it's got this and this and this, I'll just pick up the PDF for, you know, $29. They charge $30 now for their major PDFs, which, you know, I want them to get paid and everything, and I understand. But, you know, again, we're talking about the rising cost of some of the more popular publishers. So I want you to sit back, take a look at your gaming collection and say, you know, hey, I'm playing X game and I get a lot of value out of this game. This is my game system of choice. I really like it, whether it be Dungeons and Dragons, Pathfinder, Pendragon, Harn, whatever it may be. Look at that game and say, you know, I've got all this money invested in this game. Why do I need to go buy X game to do X genre or theme or whatever? Maybe look at a more generic role-playing system and maybe give it a shot. Or go to that company, you know, say D&D now, there's Everyday Heroes, which does Pacific Rim, The Crow. They're getting ready to do, I think they're going to still do Urban Arcana. So, you know, something like that, you know, but that's still in the 5e wheelhouse. There's Super's 5th edition, which is a superhero, you know, using the 5e rules. So you've got it, you know, look at your options is basically what I'm saying. But if you have a game that doesn't scratch that itch and you want to look at something more open-ended or generic, then possibly look at maybe one of these 4 titles that I'm about to go over. And again, in no particular order, not ranking them, you know, the ones I like the most or the least. It's just 5 that I grabbed, and they're in a stack, and we're going to go through them. So the first one is by Pinnacle Press, and it's Savage Worlds. This is the 20th anniversary limited edition or special metallic cover, whatever you want to call it. This is my 4th copy. My first 3 copies came damaged because of the New Jersey warehouse company that they decided to use. I assume to save a buck or expedite shipping instead of using Studio 2 Publishing like they normally use for all their shipping and warehousing. And so it came back to bite them. It cost them 4 copies. And I will say, great customer service. They took really good care of me. And I offered to ship the books back. So they said, no, keep them. So I gave them to my friends. I think I have 1 extra copy as a spare. And then I have my nice collector's copy, and it sits up on the shelf there. You can't see it, but it sits up on a shelf where everybody can see it because I think it is a beautiful cover. It is exactly the same on the inside as the current edition. I think they might have done some cleanup, but it's got gilded, you know, silver edges and stuff, and it's got some ribbons inside of it. So, but this is a generic setting. Savage Worlds, you can do, there's a huge fan base for this as well. So you can do Battlestar Galactica, you could do Star Wars, you can do Star Trek, you can do whatever you think of with this book alone. You don't need to buy anything else. You can get away with just this book for $39.99. So for $40, now you could add other stuff to, you know, the science fiction companion, the horror companion, the fantasy companion. Those are all extra, but you don't have to buy those. This is everything you need to get by and play Savage Worlds. And this and a deck of poker cards is all you need. Now, yes, they make specialized poker decks and advantage decks and things like that. You don't have to buy those, though. So great. Fast, furious fun is what they say about their system, and it really is true. This is a super easy system. You can belt out a character in 10 minutes. It is super fast, super easy once you get the hang of it. And again, this is the only book you need, and you can run pretty much anything out of this you want to run. Now, you're going to want to add more books in the future as you get deeper and deeper into it. But to get started, to get the most bang out of your buck, you can't go wrong with Savage Worlds. It is a very generic setting. It can do riffs. It can do, like I said, any sci-fi. It can do any fantasy. There's a Pathfinder version of this. So if you like Pathfinder and you want to try it in Savage Worlds, you could buy that. You could go down that road. They make a bunch of different splat books, a bunch of different accessories. So sky's the limit, kind of speak, you know. But again, you just want to spend $40 and get 1 rule book, and you want to play sci-fi, horror, fantasy, techno noir, cyberpunk, you can do it all out of this. So that's one option. Pinnacle Press, Pinnacle Entertainment Group, PEG for short, and Savage Worlds Adventure Edition, because there's 3 or 4 different versions out that you might see on a used bookshelf or whatever. So if you're going to go for the most latest, you want Suede, as we call it, or Savage Worlds Adventure Edition, Suede. So this is a really good one. The next one is another one. This does require funky dice. It's Genesis, but again, just like Savage Worlds, you can run anything with this. Your imagination is the only limiter on what you can do with this basic rule set. And this is, again, $40, $39.95. This is readily available from Edge Studio, I believe it is, or Edge Publishing. Fantasy Flight is no longer in the tabletop RPG market. They sold that portion of the business to Edge, and now Edge produces all their games, and everything is readily available now. So if you're a Edge of the Empire or Force and Destiny, all those books and starter sets and everything are readily available. What's nice about Genesis is you can buy one of those starter sets for like Star Wars or Force and Destiny, or I think Genesis might even have a starter box as well. I don't quote me on that. But they come with generic characters, some maps, some tokens, and a full set of dice. This does use proprietary dice, but they are standard polyhedral dice. And there is a chart in here that'll tell you what the normal rolls, and after a session or two, you'll get to know it. It's not a big deal, but the dice are kind of fun. I like them. The great thing about Genesis that I really enjoy is there's a couple different world settings that you can play in. There's a cyberpunk one. There's their fantasy one. They've got a sci-fi Twilight Imperium setting. They're all really well done. But the nice thing about this is their game engine, the Genesis system or generic system. See what they did there? The nice thing about this is if you have a somewhat introverted player, the dice do a great job of bringing those people out of their shell and getting them to participate in the story. So if you know someone who's a slightly introverted but is intrigued by gaming, this might be a good gateway game to get them into role-playing and get them interested a little bit more, get them more proactive instead of reactive. The dice do a great job of, because the player has to roll the dice, interpret them, and it just seems to naturally, and I've seen it, I run this at many conventions, and I get a lot of introverted players or spouses who, the husband or the wife may be a gamer and they're not, but they come along with them, and so they sit down to play because the spouse pressures them a little bit, and they kind of want to be involved, and this is a great system to get them involved because of the way the dice mechanics work. It's a very storytelling, narrative dice mechanic that, the dice dictate success or failure, but they also dictate situational modifiers that you have to expound upon. So really good system to bring people out of their shells a little bit, get them invested in the game, and really just a good generic system. So number 2, not in any particular order, it's just the second one in my stack. It's a really good system, very generic. You can play any setting that you can think of. And again, you can get away with just this book and a $15 set of polyhedral dice, which you could all share. Because the nice part is you're not all going to be typically rolling dice at the same time. So you could get by with one set of dice, or buy some of those intro box sets for like Edge of the Empire if you're into Star Wars, or the Beanstalk, which is their like cyberpunk setting, or I forgot what the fantasy one is, but you could buy those box sets and get the dice. So, and the Edge of the Star Wars Fantasy Flight stuff uses the same dice. They're slightly different color, and the symbols are just changed a little bit to be more Star Wars, but they're very similar. And the nice part is, if you don't know, the symbols are on the back of the book. So again, easy one to get into, lots of replayability. This is any of these systems would be ones that you can use and you could play in a plethora of genres. And that's the point. You buy one book, maybe one or two books, and you've got a bunch of stuff that you can use over and over and over. And the cool part is, once you're players and you know the system, Now you can modify it and make it your own or use it for different genres. So that's super cool. And it would save you a lot of money. This next one, and you can probably see it here, is GURPS. GURPS stands for Generic Universal Role Playing System. 4th edition is the most current version. This book is, again, $39.95. This is a 2-book set. There's a GM book, and then there's the characters book. They're both called Basic Set. You can get by with just this book, but the GM book, so for $80, the GM book is going to give you a lot of genre, setting, modifiers, the GM kind of stuff The basic set here is going to give you character creation. This is a point buy system. Your GM is going to tell you, okay, we're going to make 200-point characters. You've got 200 points to make a viable character, or you can go as low as 50 points and still make a very viable character depending on the power level that you're playing. But again, great setting, generic. I mean, it's in the title. Universal role-playing, generic universal role-playing system. You can't go wrong with this. And if you want to go down that road and buy extra books and more specific subject matter books, a huge library on Warehouse 23 where you can get physical and PDF, and very reasonably priced, I might add. So GURPS is another really good system, very generic. Make whatever setting you want, homespun. You know, you want to do, Hammer Slammers, novel series of sci-fi tank battles. You could do it with this easily, no problem. Giant mechs, no problem. Cyberpunk, no problem. Fantasy, no problem. I mean, you can do it all in this. So another highly recommended, one of my favorite systems, by the way. And last but not least is a newcomer to the group that I've really become enamored with and I really enjoy. And he's putting out more and more material. And he's got quite a library up on DriveThruRPG, which let me segue into use my affiliate link. It's down in the doobly-doo in the notes. It doesn't cost you anything extra, and it puts a penny or two in my pocket, which helps me buy these books because they're not cheap anymore. This one is $54.99, so it's a little bit more expensive. Yeah, $54.99. Great color art throughout. Heroes and Hardships by Earl of Fife Games. Jason Duff is the man, the myth, the legend. This is a beautiful book. Has the distinct pleasure of only using D10s. I'm a big fan of the D10 dice pool. A strong inspiration for this game was Legends of the Five Rings, which is a D10 based system as well, set in a make-believe feudal Asian world or continent called Rokugan. What's cool about H&H, Heroes and Hardships, is this is generic, and it says universal role-playing system. The art in here is phenomenal. I've done a review on this. I've done a review on all of these games, by the way. Go down in the library and check them out. Obviously, supers. You can do supers. You can do sci-fi. You can do fantasy. I played, my good friend Brian ran a fantasy game where I got to play a dwarven monk, and he was awesome. This is a fun game. It's nice having those dice pools and rolling a handful of D10s and, judging successes and failures. Very generic. He does have some sci-fi source books. He's got a really awesome orc source book. He's got a couple of adventures. He's got some GM material. Some of it's even free on DriveThruRPG. Highly, highly, highly recommend Heroes and Hardships. Generic system, one book. If you want to get into a little more deeper, you can buy a couple of the PDFs, in which case you'll have even more information. Very well done. Just an awesome game. I highly, highly recommend it. And again, D10s, so you don't need to buy a bunch of different dice. You don't need a bunch of D6s, D8s. All you need is D10s. And again, you can play in any genre, any setting that you want. And he's coming out with more and more material all the time. So definitely one to keep your eye on if you want a newer game that's not as old as all of these, because all of these three have been around for a couple of years now. This one's only been out for, I think, 2 years. When was this? This was... So give me a date. Doesn't. I think this was kickstarted in 2023 or 2024. I'm not quite sure. I think it was 2024. So here's a great generic system. You can play any genre, simple mechanics, great character creation process, and you can play it. So I hope that helps you out, leads you in the right direction. You don't have to keep spending money to find the ultimate game. one book will do it. I mean, that's the nice part about it. Sorry, I got a nose itch here. I'm about to sneeze. Any of these books, GURPS, Genesis, Savage Worlds, Heroes and Hardships, these are just 4. There's many more out there that you can get into with little to nominal cost. You can even go cheaper and buy the PDFs, print it yourself if that's something you're comfortable with doing, or if you like working off of an iPad or a tablet, you can do that, and you have no nominal cost except the cost of a PDF. And you know, then you don't have a heavy physical purchase that you're locked into. You can play around with the PDF, and then if you decide, hey, this is my jam, then you can go buy the physical book. If you do, tell them Mr. Mean sent you. I hope you found this interesting or intriguing at least, or it gave you pause for thought and maybe made you think, oh, I don't need to go buy that new game system. Maybe you already have GURPS or you have Heroes and Hardships. Maybe give it a closer look. Hey, maybe it'll do exactly what you want it to do, and you don't have to go buy a whole new game system. Use what you already have or a nominal expense to get something that will do what you want it to do. So I hope that brought some thought to you and gave you some clarity, or at least pointed you in a direction that is helpful. If you have any questions or comments, put them down in the doobly-doo. I read all the comments. I really appreciate it when you guys do it. YouTube gauges the algorithm on how much customer or how much the algorithm is judged by how many people you interact with and stuff like that. So comments are very important. And I try to respond to everybody, if nothing else, with a thumbs up or a smiley face. So I hope you've got some use out of this. As always, help support the channel. There's Patreon, there's Buy Me a Coffee, there's Drive-Thru RPG. We have a very active Discord. Links will be all in the doobly-doo. I hope you enjoyed this content. Come back and watch for more. I'll be doing something very similar to this in a couple of days. And I just wanted to, I thought Brian had a great idea on this, and I really wanted to get it pushed out today. So as always, peace and hair grease. And remember, Mr. Mean says, be nice. Thank you so much, everybody. Be well, and happy weekend.